Why are 80% of your people just watching church happen?
We see this a lot as you and I go into churches. They show up, they nod along, raise their hand in worship, might even tithe, but they're not engaging. And here's the thing, if you don't shift that culture soon, your core team's gonna burn out, your momentum will stall, and the mission will stay stuck in the mud.
Yeah, but we don't want that. We want to flip the script. And so we're going to answer the question, how do we invite passive attenders into meaningful ownership today? And why it doesn't matter to start just filling volunteer roles or making sure that they're giving, but reshaping your language, your systems, and your expectations.
Hello, friends. Hello, listeners. Frank Bealer, Jim Sheppard here today with another episode of the Next Sunday podcast.
I'm not
even going to try.
We did it a couple
nailed
weeks
it 2 episodes ago, and we're not even going to try
not
again.
Not even going to mess it up
Because it was like, I mean, if you were using editing, you couldn't have synced it up. And they don't have to edit that. It was synced up perfectly.
Maybe they'll just crop it in and we could just
crop it in.
Yeah, it's so good. Hey, so before we get started, I think we have a very good conversation.
I thought we just got started.
Yeah, before we get started with our topic today. Yeah, thank you for clarifying. Jim, here we are in Florida. We're with Sweetfish at the Creator House in Orlando.
Yep, new studio.
And this is where we come and we get to get all this recording and all this stuff.
Michael Dino here with us today.
Yeah, they're making it happen.
James Carberry.
Yeah,
great guys. We love him.
He's overseeing all this stuff. And so we come down here, we have a good time. And so since we're in Orlando, we texted some friends and said, let's go out to eat.
Yep.
So went out with some pastor friends of ours last night.
Really good place.
Great place. Had a great dinner.
Good hang.
Why am I talking about this?
I know where this is going.
What happened next?
I know where you're going with this now.
Like it is etched in my mind for possibly all eternity, or at least while I'm here on earth. We walk out and we're having a conversation, wrapping up a conversation, walking around the corner, and we see a gentleman walking his pet with this pink leash. What was on the other side of that is something I've never seen before.
I saw it and I was like, no, he is not walking
Not a dog.
Not a dog.
Not a cat.
Not a cat.
Not an alligator.
But for a second, I thought it was one of those hairless cats.
Yes.
And then I realized, no, the
Not
proportions
that.
are all off.
Nope, not a pig.
Not a pig.
A possum.
A possum.
This man is walking on a pink leash, a possum.
A possum.
And it has nothing to do with next Sunday or this episode.
Nothing.
But it is etched in my mind. We're going to crop in a picture of this possum on this leash.
You got to see this.
So you got to see this. This would be a good one to watch on YouTube, just for that sole purpose. You don't need to see us, but you need to see.
I'm telling you.
I then looked, actually you looked up, said to our pastor friend and said, is that gentleman walking a possum? And his response was,
welcome to Florida.
Welcome to Florida. It's like, okay, cool. Let me know if this is a regular thing. You can comment in the comments. If this is you, we'd like to meet you.
We'd like to know you.
We have questions.
If it is you and you're watching, we will send you some special next Sunday swag from our friend Joe Daly at Daily Goods. Okay? We will do that. I promise you. If that's you. But you have to match up with this picture that we're showing you.
That's it.
First time evidence. Ever, we're doing a giveaway at next Sunday.
And we're giving it to the possum guy. I don't know. Okay, so we do have
you
a
and
topic.
I saw this, and we were headed to our car, and we just were looking down, just scratching our heads.
There's no way.
Walking slowly, like, what is
like
this?
Lost.
What in the world?
Guys, I hope you appreciate it. That was so random, so wild. Thank you for letting us spend 3 minutes telling you that random story. Now on to more important things. Our topic today is one that I am somewhere between 99.9% and 100% confident that I'm going to strike a nerve with Jim.
There's a real
because he has
chance.
some thoughts on this one. And it's about generosity and the distribution of generosity inside a church. The patterns that we see on those that are giving a lot, those that are giving a little. Jim has literally seen decades, 3 decades worth of data and information of different churches. And we are seeing a pattern that's more extreme than I think most church leaders would think. Mm-hmm. And it's more consistent than people think. So church may think, we're kind of an anomaly. We're working through this. No. We're starting to see a pattern here that's concerning.
So I think for me, Frank, if I look at data, and I've been watching it for a long time, my whole background is accounting and finance. I was a CFO in the public sector, and even back then, I knew and believed deeply that numbers tell stories. and that stories get revealed by numbers.
Yeah.
And if you see something happening in the numbers and you can't tell me what it is, you just need to think hard enough and you'll figure it out. There's something going on in the life of your church. If everything is going this way and then it takes a dip this way, my question is, what happened, Pastor, in your numbers? Something happened. Well, we had a leadership shift. Okay, I knew something happened. Or if it's going on like this and you see an inflection point and it goes up like that, what happened there?
Yeah.
Right, what happened there? I have a client several years ago. He was surprised. He preached a 3-week series on giving, and he had a significant uptick. Didn't ask anybody to do anything. I said, Pastor, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Now, it's going to be kind of like a church plant. You have a surge, and then it settles in. It's something a little bit less than that longer term, but it's still bigger than it was.
Yeah.
Right? So something happens. So numbers are always going to tell stories. And I think for me, if I had to just start somewhere, Frank, you and I both know people want to bring the Pareto principle out and just throw it in front of us. The 20% that are going to do the 80%. And, oh my gosh, if we just get, all the lamenting and complaining, whether it's serving or small group leadership or giving or whatever it is. We got 20% of our people doing 80% of the work. Well, that's just a reality. It's hard to get around that. There's always going to be a group of super committed. But as you look inside the giving database, it's actually generally more concentrated than that.
Yeah.
It's more concentrated than that, right? So what I see a lot, let's just take some numbers that I think we can just round off and use and everybody can follow this. If I have a church with 1,000 households, it would not be unusual for me to see 520 of them giving 4% and 480 of them giving 96%.
Wow.
That wouldn't be unusual.
Okay.
That wouldn't even surprise me. In fact, it would more surprise me if that wasn't the case. And of course, you've got some people who are giving nothing, and they're out there somewhere. It's kind of hard to. It's always funny to me how people say, the number of people who give nothing, and yet they really don't have a number that they can compute that by. I mean, what is that? Is that the number of people who are showing up on Sunday?
Right.
Or, what is it? Because it's hard to figure out. I can't figure it out. So, and I've been doing this for three decades. So, but I appreciate that people say that. There are a lot of people who are showing up and giving nothing. But of the people who give, of those who give, it's not unusual that 52% are giving 4% and 48% are giving 96%. Right? But inside the 48%, Frank, it's even more concentrated than that.
Okay.
Because what I'm seeing, now church plants and newer churches would be an exception to that because their pattern hasn't really settled in.
Right.
But if they're an established church, in particular as they begin to gain some critical mass, I would say at roughly 2 to 3 million and above, it is absolutely not unusual to see 8% giving 60%. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
8%
giving 60%.
Giving 60% of year over year tithes and offerings.
Correct. Right. So, if you've got 1,000, you've really got 80 families who are carrying the weight of ministry.
Wow.
They're carrying the weight of ministry. Now, off to the side here for a second, people in the church will get upset when we begin to do specific maybe vision casting or grouping of the 80 and speak to them, say, in a giving initiative or something like that. And they'll want to scream out favoritism. And I just say, well, that's not favoritism. First of all, you're taking what's in the book of James out of context. Right. That's a whole nother lesson, But secondly, I didn't put these people in this category. They put themselves in this category.
Yeah.
They did this. I didn't do this.
Right.
I'm just looking at the data and saying, you are our faithful core. There's nothing wrong with me reaching out and saying thank you. Now, I think there's a problem when I begin to prefer you over others. That would be favoritism, but just the act of courting these people toward a higher level of faithfulness and consistency. And by the way, in a giving initiative, think about this, Frank. If 8% are giving 60% and you're trying to raise money for new buildings and new projects, if you don't have that 8% on board, what's going to happen?
Right.
I don't think you're going to make it. I don't think you're going to get where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's really this concentrated, very top of the giving ladder or pyramid, as it were, of people who are doing that. And doesn't, by the way, doesn't make them better than somebody else. We've covered this in other episodes. We can just say this. All givers are the same. Not all gifts are the same. All givers are the same, not all gifts are the same. Most people want to pull out the widow and her 2 coins for you and me. That's the one they want to go to.
Right.
And I'm good with that. But there's only one story like that in the Bible.
Right.
Only one. There's lots of other references to people who do have money and who do have resources.
Yeah.
And so my thing would be, well, let's just take King David in 1 Chronicles 29. King David had, last pastor we heard translate it, said it was over $8 billion worth of assets that he gave. He had more than that, but he gave $8 billion toward the temple. Well, we've got the widow and her 2 coins and the $8 billion. I think that's the bookends as far as we can see of identifiable gifts in the Bible. Abraham's tithe to Melchizedek might have been bigger, but we don't have enough detail to know whether that was or wasn't, right? And then in the middle, we've got all kinds of gifts, not the least of which is what Mary did at Bethany when she anointed Jesus' feet with this jar of perfume, the oxnard perfume, the pure nard perfume, that was worth more than a year's wages. 3 distinctly different gifts, but those givers are all celebrated in the life of Scripture.
Yeah.
So the idea of us celebrating the 8%, as long as we're not preferring them or making them better than somebody else and reaching out to them and asking them to lead the way or whatever we're doing, is not off. And I know there are some people who would disagree with that, and I'm okay with that, because sometimes in non-essentials, and this is clearly a non-essential, there are godly people who can have different positions on that, and everybody's okay with that.
Absolutely.
Right? It's okay with that. So the 8% giving the 60% becomes like, you've got to know that, Pastor. I mean, you and I were in a church on Monday.
Yes.
A larger church.
Yeah.
And the 8% is 200 families. They have 2,800 giving families. And nobody in that room knew that there were 201 families who were bearing 60% of the weight in that church. Nobody, until we said it on Monday. And these are smart people.
Yeah.
These are smart people, and they didn't know that. And when they heard that, it changed their mind about how they were going to move forward, and you and I adjusted their strategy to be completely different than what they had sent to us in advance, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, is if you pay attention to this. Now, I think what we have to do, now that we understand that that's a pattern and we see all of that, what I see a lot, Frank, and I know you see this as well, is I see the temptation of churches and church leaders to point the finger at them and saying, why don't you give more?
Right.
I'm just going to say, for our churches, if you're not aware of this, in fact, a good bit of it might be your fault. It might be your fault.
Yeah.
Because you're not teaching well, you're not encouraging well, you're not motivating well, you're not giving them the resources that they need to become developed givers. The strategy, as I've watched it over the last 40 years or so, seems to be, well, let's get you saved and get you a Bible and you'll figure that out. Well, I would just say to you, as I've watched this over the last 3 decades, giving as a percentage of income in people who identify as Christians in America has consistently gone a little bit down every year.
Yeah.
It's now at the same place, giving as a percentage of income. Now, I know we're in time of, there's some economic uncertainty and ups and downs, but it's not like we're in terrible shape.
Yep.
The equities markets in particular are doing exceptionally well. But our giving as a percentage of income right now is about the same as it was in 1928.
Wow.
Now, I know you and I weren't alive then.
Yep.
Some people might believe I was alive then. I wasn't.
Not quite.
At the time of the Great Depression.
Yep.
The time of the Great Depression. And since the early 50s, in other words, post-World War II, America has experienced what I heard one person describe one time as an outbreak of affluenza.
Wow.
An outbreak of affluency.
Yeah.
Now, the market has gone up and gone down. There's some who haven't benefited from it. Jesus said, the poor you'll always have with you. We know that. But there are lots of people who have made a lot of money. The middle class is different economically today than it was in the 1950s, post-World War II.
Absolutely.
It's been a consistent up and to the right. There's some up and down, but it's consistent up and to the right. And yet, our giving as a percentage of income in the American church is about where it was at the time of the Great Depression. That's not a good commentary on us. And so the strategy of hoping people will figure out giving because we give them a Bible is not working. In fact, one of the questions I like to ask churches when we do the strategy day or the generosity audit or something like that is, hey, Pastor, let me ask you this question. If I came to your church as a new believer and I didn't understand anything about giving, how would I learn that here?
Yeah.
The majority report, I don't mean 52%, I mean like in the 80s, if not higher, is, wow, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I don't know that they would.
Yeah. Well, we do have that one sermon series coming up next year.
Next year,
Yeah.
which will be the first time we've done it in 4 years,
yeah, that's right.
But we do have that coming up. And with the frequency of attendance patterns, we're just hoping that that's the Sunday you choose to be here. Or if not, maybe you'll watch it in our sermon archive or something like that, right? And of course, there needs to be more consistency. You've got to have systems and structures and messaging and all the things that it takes to develop these undeveloped people into people who become the kinds of givers that you want them to become, because hoping that they will hasn't worked.
Yeah. And so let's pause for a second just to calibrate heart, because we've been speaking a lot to data and information. Why do we care? Why do we care? Like, if the budget's being met, we're plugging along. Why do we care? I know the answer to this. I just want you to share it. Why do we care that people grow in generosity and this becomes a focus for churches?
So think about the conversation, Frank, that we had with the executive pastor on the way out of the room just 2 days ago.
Yep.
Just 2 days ago when we were with that executive pastor. And their giving over the last 2 years has gone up over 60%. Doesn't
Booming
happen.
church. They're zooming.
And he was just like, and they're not doing an offering moment of any kind during the service. And he's excited because, hey, look where we've gotten. I mean, we haven't even done an offering moment. Look where we've gotten. And he looked at me and he's like, you don't seem as excited about this as I am. And I said, Pastor, I'm not. I said, because I know that your potential is far beyond where you are right now.
Yeah.
Far beyond. Given the demographic of your area and where you are, I think the level you're at is just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
I think there's some other things you could do without asking people for money that would take it even further.
Yeah.
Right? And so that was a conversation. And it's not so that we can raise money. It's so that we can disciple people.
Yes.
Because here's what we believe. Here's what we believe at Generis, just to make this clear. We believe that accelerated discipleship in financial areas leads to accelerated generosity, which leads to better flourishing for our people in God's community, which leads to more resourcing of God's mission in and through his church here on earth. And that's the order it happens in. Unfortunately, lots of churches inadvertently go from step 1 to step 4.
Wow. Walk through those steps again, just in case somebody wants to write them down.
Accelerated generosity, particularly as it relates to finances, leading to, accelerated discipleship, as it leads to, as it pertains to finances, leading to accelerated generosity, which leads to accelerated flourishing for those people in God's kingdom, which leads to accelerated resourcing of God's kingdom.
Love it.
Here on church, on earth. And for many churches, inadvertently, what they've drifted into is, I just want you to become a good giver so we can fund the things we're trying to do.
Yeah.
That's that transactional mindset that we keep, that we're battling, that we're trying to push back against.
Which is a tension, because what they're saying that they want to do, what we're saying as the capital C Church in America, it's not wrong. What the intention to use the money is, for the most part, is just to do good work. And so when they're drawing a correlation of, if we had more resource, we'd be able to do more good things in the community. That's not a wrong idea or a bad idea. It's just, if that's the end game without the heart work in the middle, it's not going to bear the same kind of fruit.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we're saying is, we're really just kind of advocating again for the who knows how manyth time in our podcast, because we love this verse. What Paul advocated when he said, I didn't seek the gift for my account. I wasn't trying to fund my ministry. Now, I appreciate that happened. But what I was really excited about was what happened to you when you made the gift to God. Well, I didn't seek the gift for my own account, but for the increase that happened in your account, your internal portfolio. When God was, in his infinite, mysterious way, moving around all of the ledgers in heaven and giving you credit for this. That's what I was excited about. You gave glory and honor to God with your gift, and your gift moves you in closer relationship to God.
That's good. All right, let me ask you a question that's not on the list. Not something we prepared for.
Here it comes.
Churches have limited time, energy, and resources to get things done. There are lots of things to get done. As we mentioned on an episode just a few weeks ago, Sunday comes the tyranny of Sunday. It comes every 7 days,
It's
right?
urgent and relentless.
It's urgent and relentless. It is not going to stop. So there's other things. We've got kids ministry to run, and we've got this staff member that's moving, so they've got to be replaced. And so there's a lot of things to focus on. Even if you double click on the area of generosity, there's so much work to be done, so many different facets to this. Where does a church spend their time if they're trying to pick which to do? Do they spend more time trying to help those that are giving something to grow in generosity, or trying to engage the non-giver? If I had to choose, where would you start today? And the answer might change tomorrow because I'm totally putting you on the spot. But if I only have time to work on one thing first, which one do I work on first? And we've never had this conversation, so I'm putting you totally on the spot.
You're making me choose one, because when you're describing that, you know my answer was going to be yes.
Well, yes, I know that. Do it all. Do it all. I'm just saying, if I only have time to focus on one area, I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to get better, Jim. But this is just, if somebody goes back and listens to all the podcast episodes, there's so much room for improvement. It's more than a full-time job just to do all this, right? There's a ton of work to do, right? So I'm just trying, on behalf of our listeners, to ask a question that I think they'd ask. You go, I hear you, but I also listened to the last episode. In the last episode, I'm trying to figure out where to focus. So taking everything else aside and just narrowing down to these two, I want to start improving one or the other. Where do I start?
So let's break it down. Let's go back to the analogy, to the example I used earlier. So you're asking me, would I focus on the 520 giving 4% or the 480 giving 96%?
Nope. I'm saying the 520 or the ones that aren't giving anything.
Oh.
Yes, not the ones that are giving more. That's a different conversation. I'm saying between those that are giving very, very little, the large portion that are giving very, very little, or those that are giving none. Because in some churches, if I do try to figure out overall how many people are attending our church, passing through our doors because of frequency of attendance, use some Barna data and whatnot, the number of households that are giving nothing, okay, not in our giving reports, and those that are tipping, they're giving a little something, those are two very large conglomerates of people. So I'm going, okay, I've got to focus on one or the other. Which one do I turn?
All right, so it's a hard choice because I think there's more room for discipleship growth in the people who are giving nothing. But I'm going to go with the 520 who are giving something. Okay. That group typically averages about $150 annually. So it's a very small gift. So there's not too much beyond nothing. And I'm going to go with that group for two reasons. One, I can see who they are.
Yes.
It's really hard to see who the zeros are. It's hard to know who those are. I can see who the 520 are, so they're a defined constituency for me. And number two, they've done something.
Yep.
So I can leverage the something to move that to another level. I feel like I could disciple that group. They're very, very ready for discipleship as well, as much or more so than, or at least as much as the nuns.
Yeah.
But because I can define them and because they've done something, I think my chances are better there. So that's probably where I'm going to invest my time.
That's good. And I know this is an impossible
I could make
question.
the arguments. You could convince me the other way, so I'm not hard on this. I gave you why I chose that.
Yep.
Those two reasons.
Yeah, it's like I took your daughters and throw them in the lake and said, save one and leave the other. I didn't give you much choice here, right? And so, but I'm just trying to figure out, here's what I'm getting at. For those of you that are leaders in the church and you're just trying to figure out where to start, I ask the question because I'm just saying, start somewhere. Please don't listen to these episodes and get this wisdom from Jim as we're processing things together and go, wow, that's so much. I agree with everything, but I got to go back. I got to get to work with just life. Yeah. And so it's like, how do we start somewhere? And so to your point, we could flip it and make a case for the other or another or another, all kinds of different stuff. Where do you begin?
That's right.
You begin by just picking somewhere to start doing a better job than you've been doing, knowing that there's room for improvement and be intentional about it. I think that it's more like there are 5 dials to turn or 5 plates to spin and kind of different elements to this. I don't know that it's 5, but they all require kind of that plate spinner has to kind of grab that stick elliptic and kind of spin it again. And so it just takes kind of rotating around and going back and forth to do that. We recognize that. This is complicated and hard. I would just say it can be very motivating, and you can bear some really cool fruit by starting somewhere and just getting to work and going, you know what? Our new giver journey is unclear. To answer your question earlier, if I'm a new giver, where am I going to learn about it? Or if I'm new to your church, where am I going to learn about it?
Yeah.
Let's answer that question. Yeah. Or, man, I gave something that one time, it was compelling. Why should I be consistent? Teach me that. And why should I grow in generosity? Like, all right, let's focus on those people. Just start somewhere would be my encouragement to you along the way.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer, Frank. And, a lot of times you don't have to have staff. You don't have to have a staff person to do this. There's somebody who probably has to own it on their job description. But if it were me, I'd find a small group of what I would call giving champions. They're probably in the 8%, people who are passionate about it. And who would help guide you in leading that effort, and just ask them, what are we doing well? What are we not doing well? What would you do how can we respond? Show them the data. You don't have to show them the names, but show them the data. Give them a really deep inside look at, who's giving what groups of people are giving what, right? I think it's really important, assuming that you have a lot of good birth date information, to look at age and stage giving.
Yeah.
In my church, we're a Presbyterian church, PCA church. We have good data. We have good date of birth on like 96% of our people.
Wow.
So we can produce age and stage reports. Very helpful for us. And what we've seen is not surprisingly, our younger stages are not carrying as much of the weight as our older stages, and we've got to fix that over time. Because as people in my generation begin to age out, whatever that looks like, move, retire, take a different job, go to fixed income, pass away, whatever happens in that season, then we've got to have the younger ones who come up and step up and take the place. Well, what are you doing to grow those people right now?
Yeah.
What are you doing to grow
Disciple
them now? And so we've started that. One of the things we figured out in looking at our, we're a membership church, so we do have membership in our church. It's a formal membership process, but there's not a giving segment per se. I mean, there's reference to it, but it's not a giving segment per se. And so what we looked at everyone who started our church from 2024 to the middle of 2025. And we found out, surprisingly, our CFO, and one of the women on her staff that we're working together looking at this data, we found out that a third of our new members, Frank, and when you sign on, part of it is that I'm going to give, right? 1/3 have given nothing since they became members of the church.
Wow.
And what I'm saying to my church is, what I'm saying here on this podcast, what are we doing wrong?
Yeah.
What are we doing wrong?
Yeah, it's
what are
easy
we
to point
not
the finger,
doing?
but what are we doing? Yeah.
And so this is going to be a plug. This is going to be a plug for something that's newer, and I think it has a lot of potential. You and I have talked with them at the national level. I didn't realize it, but found out shortly thereafter. My church is actually doing this, and we're offering these classes, and we're seeing it make a difference. It's the Ron Blue Institute and their new study, God Owns It All. It is an amazing study, and you can actually, my church has done this. We've white labeled it for our church. We've taken their content and re-recorded it in our studio with our voices, people in our church. And we've already got hundreds of people who are going through that class, Frank, and it's making a difference. So the answer could be, if I said to you, Pastor, if I came here and didn't know how to give, how would I learn? You could just sit up and say, well, Jim, we're offering the God Owns It All course, and we think that's a really good introduction for people to understand the why, the how, and all the essentials of giving. And we're not asking you to make a gift to our church. We're teaching you how to become a good giver.
That's so good.
Right.
Listen, at the end of the day, we hope that these episodes are fruitful, that they give you insight and wisdom and give you some actionable next steps. You can't do everything, but you can start somewhere. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Next Sunday Podcast. We'll see you again in a couple weeks.